We're delighted now to be joined by, she's come a long way. You might know her as Blag Hag. We downloaded her from the internet this morning. Yeah, all the way from America. Her first experience with an Irish taxi driver, or more specifically, a Dublin taxi driver. He referred to Bush as a right gobshite.
Yes.
We proved. Welcome to Ireland. Would you like to come on stage, Jen? Sure.
I'm just going to keep drinking beer. Sorry. I realize these slides are a little hard to see, especially for people in the back, so I'll make sure to explain everything that's on the slides. They're more for me than for you anyway, but don't worry if you can't see it, I'll try to make it clear. Yeah, but thanks for having me. This was kind of thrown together last minute when I was like, hey, I'm going to be in Dublin next week. Does any atheist or skeptic in Ireland want me to come and give a talk? And you did, so thanks for having me. I do have to give a warning before I start in that I'm extremely jet lagged. We got in like 10 this morning, and my equivalent of the night's sleep was like a 2-hour nap, and I've been drinking, so yay, feminism. That's a great time to talk about feminism. You're a little delusional, so today I'm going to talk about God's lady problem. And to start off, I want to talk about the F word, feminism. And my definition of feminism that I'm going to be using for this talk is just the theory of the political, economical, and social equality of the sexes. Or a quote that I really love that explains this is the radical notion that women are people. And I like making this clear because a lot of people have very strong misconceptions about what feminism is. Just to go through what feminism is not. Feminism is not man-hating. It's also not a ploy to have women take over the world. At least that's what I have to tell you guys. And it's not humorless. Hopefully I'll show you that throughout the talk today. I did like this comic though that says, "This is a feminist bookstore. There is no humor section."
What's the one on top?
Oh, no, sorry, forget, can't see. Okay, the one on top is, "It's so cool if you use your imagination, you can blame men for everything." And they're coming out of a women's studies 101 classroom. That's, a ploy to take over the world. Yeah. It's also not something that only women can do. That's the point that I want to make clear during this talk. That I have a lot of guys who say, well, I support you, but I want to use the feminist label, or I'm afraid to be outspoken because I'm going to be seen as like swooping in and trying to save women from the evils of sexism, which just seems sexist in itself. Don't worry about it. If you're a guy who wants to support women's rights, please do, because we need those allies. So don't feel like it's only something women can do to be a feminist. So why should atheists be feminists? Why am I talking to an atheist group about feminism? Well, because sexism is irrational. This is privileged denying dude, internet meme, saying feminism is outdated and sexism is no more. Women are just too stupid to see that. And unfortunately, this is a problem we have in the atheist community, in that a lot of atheists don't see sexism as an issue that should be addressed within a skeptical or atheist community. But sexism is irrational, and if we're trying to be rational human beings using logic to inform ourselves, we should be addressing issues of sexism as well. So just to kind of go into some of the differences between sexes, or the science behind it, the take-home point is there's not a lot of it. For example, there's no difference in mathematical ability between men and women. And this XKCD comic sums it up the best. And when it's a guy talking to a guy doing math poorly, he says, "Wow, you suck at math." When he's talking to a girl doing math, he says, "Wow, girls suck at math." And this is actually something known as stereotype threat, where women who know of the stereotype that women are bad at math do worse at math. But when they're not exposed to that stereotype, or when before a test they're asked to write about things that they're good at, or things that make them feel empowered, they do just as well, if not better, than the guys. So it's really that stereotype about being bad at math that gives them extra anxiety and makes them perform poorly at math tests. Women are actually not better at reading emotions than men. They're not more empathetic, despite contrary popular belief. And overall, more variation exists within genders than between them. If you want to learn more, I really suggest Cordelia Fine's book, Delusions of Gender. It goes into a lot of the science behind sex differences. One of the things I like to say is, there are definitely sex differences, but they don't really lead to how we should have our ethics. I mean, men have larger canine teeth than women, but we don't make laws based on that. Men tend to be slightly stronger than women, but that doesn't mean that women shouldn't be able to vote, etc., etc. So even if there is something in biology that we see that's different, that doesn't mean that should dictate how we treat people. So why aren't all atheists feminists? This seems really obvious to me that, you know, if this is a rational issue, that there's no science behind the difference between the sexes, why does this keep getting perpetuated? Well, for one, we're not isolated from our environment. How many people here grew up in a religious household? Used to believe something? Yeah, a lot of people. And just like, think about how hard it was to leave that religion behind, to leave that religious belief behind. It took a long time to deprogram yourself, to stop believing in God, stop having the guilt associated with certain religious rules. And it's the same thing. We're not isolated from our environment, and we grow up in a sexist society. Often that's sexist because of religion, and so sometimes it's really hard to just get rid of those ingrained beliefs that you're just so used to having. But the other thing is that not all atheists are skeptical. I wish this were true, but you know, I run into atheists who believe all sorts of wacky things, unfortunately, or they leave religion for emotional reasons rather than rational reasons. It's not because they heard a really great argument against Pascal's Rager, it's because they were really upset with how the church treated gays or women. But, so this is another reason. If someone's not skeptical necessarily about all facts in their life, they might not be skeptical about sexism. So why should feminists be atheists? Well, obviously because there's no God. But obviously the rational argument doesn't work for everyone, and I know that, you know, humans are emotional beings, and using that persuasive arguments do help people start thinking a certain way. And I think there's a case to be made that religion is pretty much universally harmful to women. And I think a lot of feminists, especially modern feminists, they're more likely to be atheists or not religious, but there are a lot who still embrace religion and try to say that they're a Christian feminist or a Muslim feminist and try to ignore what's going on in their own religion. So I think you know, feminists should be atheists because most religions are misogynistic. So why then are women more religious? This is a stat that you see thrown around all the time, that women are more religious than men, do attend religious services more. But when you look at it, the gender imbalance is not so bad as we thought. So women are slightly more likely to attend church weekly, go to Bible study weekly, attend Sunday school a little more, and volunteer for church. But it's not so skewed as we thought. So there is hope in there that I would like to point out. But throughout this talk, I want to talk a little bit more about what makes women so religious if religion's so hurtful. Sure. This is from the U.S. I will apologize ahead of time. This is very U.S. centric. Yeah, I'm a dumb American sometimes. I'll admit.
Fair enough.
So to learn more about why women are more religious than men, I started asking certain questions about religion, or to religious people. For example, do you feel afraid of God much of the time? Well, yeah, I mean, that's the whole concept of hellfire, eternal damnation. You're supposed to be afraid of these things so you do good works. Do you believe that you deserve to be hurt or mistreated? Does God blame you for his own cruel behavior? That's the whole story of Adam and Eve. God, puts this nice little tree of knowledge there and says, don't touch it, and then, he basically puts this curiosity into humans and then punishes them forever and ever because they use that curiosity. Does God have a bad and unpredictable temper? Yeah. The poster says, kids, don't fuck with God or bears will eat you. Does anyone know what Bible quote this is from? What verse? You can shout it out.
It's Job, right?
It's Elijah, 42 kid.
Yes, it was Elijah he was bald and they made fun of him for being bald and God sent bears to follow him. God's kind of a jackass.
He sent she-bears.
She-bears, oh. There's that underlying message in there. The feminist bears, multiple children. Does God hurt you or threaten to hurt or kill you? God killed more people in the Bible than Satan did, so I think we can check that off the list. Just if you can't see, God is the very large bar graph at the top. That's about 2 million people, and Satan killed 10. So good job. Good job, God. Does God threaten to take your children away or harm them? No, but he'll make you try to kill them for him. Yep, Abraham. Does God force you to have sex? Didn't really ask Mary for consent at a time. Kind of sketchy. Does God act excessively jealous and possessive? That's called the first commandment. You shall have no other gods before me. And does God control where you go or what you do? That's called religion. That's basically the whole concept of religion. So, where am I going with these questions? Where did I get these questions from? These are actually the same questions for finding out if you're in an abusive relationship. It's quite frightening how closely belief in God and religion parallels being in an abusive relationship. You get trapped in this situation where all the psychological things are employed that make it so you can't leave, that you're so invested. And this is especially true for women. So I'm going to talk a little bit specifically about how religions treat women, despite getting trapped in there. Orthodox Judaism, for example, they refuse to let women initiate a divorce. They have to sit separately in synagogue and dress modestly. It's going to be a common theme. They have to wear head coverings after marriage. And any decision about birth control or abortion has to be made by a rabbi, not the woman. And on to evangelical Christianity. Oh, I could go on for hours about this, but just some highlights. Rick Warren, U.S. megachurch pastor, said that spousal abuse is not an acceptable reason for divorce. So, it's not so much of a stretch to say that religion's like abuse when the religion itself is saying that you should stay through this abuse because religion is more important. And then there's the whole quiverful movement. Is anyone here not familiar with the quiverful movement? Oh, you're about to have fun. The quiverful movement is based on this quote from the Bible that I'll read since no one can see it. Lo, children are the heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. As arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are children of the youth. Happy is the man that hath a quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemies in the gate. So the takeaway message from that is basically outbreed your enemies. And this is what we see. There's a unfortunately popular TV show in the US, 21, or I don't know what number they're on now, 22 and counting, 25 and counting. It's about the Duggars, which is a family, a quiverful family, where they basically just have as many children as possible, child after child, every 9 months, because they see this as their mission from God. They basically have to outbreed their enemy by just making more Christian babies. If you want to learn more about this, I highly recommend the website nolongerquivering.com. It's written by an atheist woman, Vicki Garrison, who used to be part of this quiverful movement and basically escaped with her children from this religious environment. So it's a very interesting story. Catholicism, again, I can go on for hours. No ordination of women. This results in automatic excommunication and is considered a grave crime as bad as child molestation. Yes. Women becoming a priest, bad as raping children. Good job, Catholic Church. Obviously, they're against birth control and against abortion, even when done to save a woman's life. And there's also been cases of hundreds of thousands of Australian women who were forced into adoptions. Adoptions in scare quotes because they didn't actually want their babies to be adopted. These are women who were usually teenagers, not Catholic, from rougher households where they would basically, single mothers, and they would basically steal the children from them and have them adopted into Catholic families so these children could be raised properly. And this is actually coming out to be happening, this was in the 80s that this was happening a lot, and it's actually, more stories are coming out that this wasn't just in Australia, that it was happening around the world.
What's the cartoon say?
Oh, the cartoon says, there are plenty of great jobs for women in the Catholic Church. We need cooks, cleaners, drivers, hairdressers, messengers, seamstresses. Now girl, be positive, the sky's the limit. Yeah. Now, if we actually look at the Bible, they have lots of advice to how to be ladylike. I point this out because when I first started giving this talk, I got a lot of people who were saying, Jen, that's just organized religion, that's like culture, that's how people employ religion. That's not what the Bible actually says about women. Then you learn they haven't read the Bible, because the Bible has a lot to say about women that isn't so positive. They say things that if a woman is pregnant and bears a male child, she's unclean for 7 days. But if she has a female child, she's unclean for weeks and weeks, because it's dirty to have a female child. Women are not to wear anything that a man would wear, so I'm violating that rule right now, so I'm wearing pants. And, well, of course, though this is equal opportunity sexism because men aren't allowed to wear women's clothing either, so there you go. How sexism affects men too.
I hope your clothes aren't made out of 2 fibres now.
Oh yeah, let's not even get into that. Multiple fibers, crazy talk. But it's not just the Old Testament either. A lot of people like to say that Jesus came in and he fixed everything, and everything was peachy keen after that. They got rid of all the old laws. But there are lots of quotes in the New Testament that don't like women either. Some of the worst ones, in my opinion, that women have to keep silence in churches, for it's not permitted unto them to speak. If they will learn anything, let them ask their husbands at home, for it is a shame for women to speak in the church. Women, submit yourselves to your husbands as it is fit to the Lord. There are also lots of verses about how women should adorn themselves modestly, which is also where the Orthodox Judaism and Islam gets these sort of ideas, that they have to be no braided hair or gold or curls, they have to be silent, they cannot usurp authority over the man. And my favorite quote is that the reason why they can't usurp authority over the man is for Adam was first formed, then Eve, and Adam was not deceived, but the woman being deceived was in the transgression. So basically, women screwed over the entire human race by sitting. So good job, ladies. So that's kind of why they get the short end of the stick. So I like to play a little game with the audience, since this talk can be kind of depressing. So I like to see if you know what the biblical punishment is for this transgression that a woman would commit. So I'm going to read a transgression, and I just want you to shout out what you think the punishment is, okay?
Pretty easy.
All right. Oh yeah. You would think so, but all right. All right. First one: wearing showy jewelry and clothing. Stoning seems popular. Ugliness, misery, and death. I don't know if this is like sequential, like you get really ugly and then you're sad about it and you die. It's all at the same time. Not quite sure, but maybe a biblical scholar can fill me in. Having sex while on your period.
Stoning.
Are you just gonna guess stoning?
Your husband gets in period.
Banishment. I knew you'd all think it was stoning. All right.
This is a castle.
Adultery. There you go. Definitely stoning. All right. Being a non-virgin.
Stoning. Forced marriage.
Yeah, enforced marriage.
Stoning on your father's doorstep. Except if she's a priest's daughter, then you burn her.
Can you stone her once she's on fire?
That's a good question. I don't know if there's a loophole where you have to stone her while she's on fire. Yeah. Touching a man's junk during a fight. Cut your hand off. No touching the man's junk. Even if you're trying to defend your husband by touching another guy's junk accidentally.
So maybe to touch your husband's junk.
If you're married, yeah. Husband's junk, yeah. Actually, they'll probably find something wrong with that too. I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
If you rape a virgin,
Marry her.
yes, you have to marry her. So I just want you to think about these different punishments for a little while and see the differences between them. Yeah. But it's not just the Bible. I harp on the Bible a lot because that's what I'm used to. I'm from America. It's mostly Christian. I grew up in the Midwest, which is super duper Christian, so that's just what I'm used to. But a lot of religions just have a problem with women's issues. For example, Islam. Women must dress modestly, lest men lust after them, because they're protecting women, because men just can't control themselves, so obviously they have to be covered head to toe. The price of adultery is 100 lashes and a year in exile. It's in the Quran. It's much harder for a woman to get a divorce than a man. A woman also only receives half of the inheritance that a man would, which, at the time that the Quran was written, this was actually very progressive that they got any inheritance at all, but nowadays, still pretty backwards. A woman's testimony is only worth half that of a man. So in rape cases where this this Quranic law is under Sharia law and employed, if a woman's raped, you have to have 4 total witnesses for her versus the one man who's being accused of rape, because she has to have enough witnesses like outweighing his, because her testimony is not worth as much. And a woman's husband has the moral duty to beat her for disobedience. Not very friendly to women in Islam. Hinduism, not scot-free either. I'll read this quote from the Vedas. By a girl, by a young woman, or even by an aged one, nothing must be done independently, even in her own house. In childhood, a female must be subject to her father, and youth to her husband. When her lord is dead, to her sons. A woman must never be independent. Now, this isn't just some sad philosophy that people follow. People follow this, and there's results of people learning this as part of their religion. For example, this is why women are always lower than men in the caste system. They can't achieve the highest enlightenment. This is also the reason behind something known as dowry deaths, which is what happens is women are expected to give a large dowry to her soon-to-be husband's family through marrying them, and these families will actually harass women to give larger and larger dowries so much, making the family so poor and harassing the women so repeatedly, the women will actually go commit suicide rather than deal with these families, because they're basically robbing their families dry. And thousands of women in India die from this every year. Obviously, there's stuff like sex-selective abortion, which is a major problem, where Hinduism is very prevalent because of this sort of thinking that women are lower than men. And widows are also shunned as bad luck. If your husband dies before you, you're basically seen as the cause of that death. And there's a practice known as sati, which is where a woman throws herself on her husband's funeral pyre to die with him. But in the vast majority of cases, she's not throwing herself on, she's being thrown on. And again, this is illegal in India only recently, unfortunately. It was in the 90s that this became explicitly illegal. But thousands of women still die because of this, because they're expected to give themselves because their husbands died. Now, a lot of people like to think of Buddhism as being this nice, peaceful religion, especially in the West. We've kind of adopted it as this hippy-dippy, like, Buddhism, I'm just reaching enlightenment in this vague way. But there are rules that come with Buddhism that Americans don't typically follow, and they're also pretty sexist. For example, Buddhist nuns, they're required to be subordinate to Buddhist monks, so even the highest ranking Buddhist nun is below the lowest ranking Buddhist monk. And they also have 111 more rules to follow, including things saying that their menstruation is unclean, so they're not allowed to be in any holy worship areas or touch any holy texts when they're menstruating. And a specific sect of Buddhism, Theravadan Buddhism, claimed that a woman could never become Buddha because Buddhists believe that it's negative karma that leads you to being reborn as a woman. That basically, you did something bad in a previous life, you're a man, and that's why you're a woman now. Sorry ladies, I guess we were all serial killers in our past lives or something. So that's why they think that you can never become Buddha. And it's not just Buddhism. Even Jainism has a lot of funky beliefs. And Jainism, if you're not familiar with it, the people who can read are giggling in the front. People can see. I assume you can read in the back. So Jainism is the religion that Sam Harris says that if everyone on the planet was Jain, he'd have no problem with people being religious because they're all about peace. They're the people who you see the very high-ranking monks that they'll sweep their path in front of them because they don't even want to step on insects because they're so into non-violence. That's their thing. But the problem is they see the female body as inherently violent because menstruation kills microorganisms. Wow. As a biologist, this makes me wonder, like, is it only like immunocompromised Jains that can become enlightened? That, we all have immune systems that are killing microorganisms. It's not just menstruation that's killing something. But biology not so important, I guess. Theology over biology. They also see that women can't break free from their earthly attachments because it's women's nature to care for children, so they're always attached to the things at home, and therefore they can't be enlightened. So you have to be reborn as a male before you can achieve spiritual liberation, just because women are always going to be below men. So, are these just extremists? Like, is this just like the wacko side sects really like conservative people of these religions that believe this? Is this something that we don't have to worry about? I probably don't have to tell you, but no. These stats, again, American-centric, sorry, but 14% of Canadians and 31% of Americans are biblical literalists. Think everything in the Bible is literally true, not metaphor, not allegory, not a story. And even more frighteningly, 41% of Americans think Jesus will return by 2050. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize for my country. So this isn't just a fringe group, and I know we're in Ireland, but American politics affects a lot of the world, unfortunately, oftenly. And we have a huge chunk of our society who think Jesus is coming back within their lifetime. That's scary. And the thing is, we see this in our American politics. We're all the Republican candidates for presidency, and they all think this way. For example, Mitt Romney, Planned Parenthood, we're going to get rid of that. Which is our... Do you have Planned Parenthood in Ireland?
No.
So Planned Parenthood is basically a women's health center. We can get very cheap / free contraceptive. They do abortions, but it's a very small percentage of their stuff they do.
Pay for you to have sex.
Oh yes, they pay for you to have sex. So, I'm actually a shill for Planned Parenthood, so lots of money to have sex all the time and stay right there. Ron Paul, why don't they quit once the so-called harassment starts? He's talking about sexual harassment. Obviously, the morals of the harasser cannot be defended, but how can the harassee escape some responsibility for the problem? Ladies, you're just asking for it if you're being harassed. Yeah. Oh yeah. People vote for these people. That's scary. All right. And my favorite from Rick Santorum. The right approach is to accept this horribly created in the sense of rape, but nevertheless a gift in a very broken way, the gift of human life, and accept what God has given to you. So if you're raped and you get pregnant, you better love that rape baby and not abort it, because it's a gift from God. It's a gift from God that you got raped and had that baby. Millions of people voted for these guys. I mean, Mitt Romney, he's the current candidate. Oh, this is so washed out. That's okay. You don't need to see them in color. They're scary enough in black and white.
I hope Obama wins them.
I hope Obama wins too, trust me. Now, religion doesn't necessarily create sexist ideas, but it does protect it. It makes them untouchable. Now, I'll read, this is a pretty popular comic, but I'll read it in case you haven't seen it. There's a man on the left who's bashing an atheist over the head with a cross, saying, "Blind, idiot, rat, fink, pervert, commie, blasphemer, immoral creep, and scum of the earth." And the atheist goes to crack the cross over his knee, and the religious person says, "Hey, let's have a little respect here." And this is so true about how religion is perceived in our society, in that religious belief is seen as something special and personal and untouchable, and you just shouldn't criticize someone about it because it's rude. Like, that's their religious belief. Don't get in their face about it. But the problem is, their religious belief affects everyone else. When they're voting for people like Mitt Romney and Rick Santorum, and they're voting laws into office that, ban abortions and all that good stuff, that their religious beliefs are affecting everyone else. And if we can't criticize them, then they have the full right to go and do whatever they want. Now, this is my main, if you get nothing else out of this talk, the main take-home message is you should not be afraid to criticize religion, because it's a perpetuating cycle when you get afraid to say, "I'm an atheist," or to say, just simply, "I don't agree with you." You don't have to say you're an atheist outright, but if someone goes spewing something about, "Well, I think abortion should be banned because the Bible says this," you should say, "Well, that's your religious belief and the Bible doesn't apply to everyone else, so why do you think that moral should apply to everyone else who doesn't believe in that?" And you should be able to speak up and say that, your belief can be wrong, because religious beliefs are ideas like every other idea. They have to stand up in the marketplace of ideas. They have to stand up to criticism and debate. They shouldn't be in a protected little bubble. So back to the original topic. why is it so hard for women to leave religion? I mean, I just listed tons of reasons why all these religions treat women horribly. Why are women religious then? And my theory is that it really boils down to power. I think a lot of women, when you think of even the most conservative, most misogynistic religions, most traditional, those are the ones where women are trapped the most. Because they make it so women have nothing outside that religion. They make it so their family network is tied to the church. They're supposed to be the ones bringing up their children with religious upbringing and morals. That's their duty. Often they don't have a job outside the house because they're from very traditional families that think women should only be rearing children. So if anything, they usually help with church potlucks or running church daycares or Sunday school. And if a woman starts doubting things, which doubting religion is hard enough because they discourage you to doubt and talk about it, they have nowhere to go. Imagine if you're a woman stuck in a super religious family, a quiverful family. If you want to leave, you have to leave all your children behind that you love. Obviously, your husband, your spouse, but you also have to leave your community behind. You basically lose all the friends you've had because they set this up in a way that you only have friends through the church, just like the abusive relationship. They make it so your whole life revolves around this relationship with God and the church, that you can't leave it because you'll lose everything. And that's how abusive relationships work as well.